It was an ordinary Monday. You know the kind, coffee's too bitter, inbox too full, brain still lagging behind your body. I wasn't even supposed to be home that early. My flight from Denver got bumped up last minute due to weather, and by some miracle I was back in the driveway before 7 a.m. Duffel still in hand, car service pulling away before the street had fully woken up. Jessica didn't know I was coming back early. That thought didn't mean anything at the time. We don't have secrets, right? Just a surprise morning, I figured. I imagined her still asleep upstairs, curled up in the comforter. That little crease between her eyebrows she always gets when she dreams. I wanted to crawl into bed, wrap my arms around her, let her mumble something half asleep and smile when she realized it was me. I didn't get that far. The moment I stepped into the kitchen, something caught, like a scratch on a vinyl record. A skip in the rhythm of what should have been a normal morning. It was quiet, not the peaceful kind either. The house had a stillness that felt staged, like it was holding its breath. Then I saw it. A shirt, draped over the back of one of the kitchen chairs. At first, I thought maybe it was one of hers. But no, not Jessica's. She's more flannel and cotton, not this. It was pale, almost ivory, light and flowy. Thin straps, a delicate pleat along the neckline. Soft fabric that looked like it would tear if you pulled too hard. It didn't look like anything she owned. Not from the dozens of laundry days we've shared. Not from any vacation we'd packed for. I stared at it longer than I should have, telling myself not to make assumptions. I lifted it. That's when I noticed the stain. A dark red mark, smeared just slightly, right at the inside of the cuff. Lipstick, maybe. Not blood. Too neat. Too waxy. Jessica doesn't wear red lipstick. I stood there in my kitchen, holding a stranger's shirt that had clearly been worn and left behind. I tried to rationalize. Maybe a friend was over. Maybe someone stayed the night after a party. Carly or Brooke or whoever. Jessica's friends were spontaneous like that. Sometimes they stayed over after too much wine and reruns of The Bachelor. But even then, they didn't leave clothes in the kitchen. I set the shirt down, slower than necessary, like it might burn. The silence grew louder. I don't know what made me do it, but I walked back outside and opened her car. Just popped the door and leaned in like I was checking for something I'd left behind. In the center console, crumpled next to a half-empty pack of gum, was a receipt. It was folded once, messily, like someone had jammed it there in a rush. I opened it. There, in bold Sharpie, was a name and a phone number. Derek? Sat night wine glass. That wine glass emoji hit harder than it had any right to. Just under the scribble was the timestamp. Saturday night. I stared at it for what felt like a full minute. Derek. I don't know a Derek. And Jessica. Jessica never mentioned a Derek. Not from work. Not from yoga. Not from anywhere. I looked back at the house. Lights still off upstairs. No footsteps. No noise. It hit me then I wasn't supposed to see this. Not the shirt. Not the receipt. Not anything. I walked inside like I was sleepwalking. My body moved on its own. I didn't even know what I planned to say. I just knew I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. Jessica was still in bed, exactly where I pictured her. She blinked when I entered, startled for half a second, then smiled. "You're home early." Her voice was soft, a little groggy. No guilt, no alarm. I held up the shirt. "Whose is this?" She propped herself up on her elbows, squinting in the early light. "What?" "This shirt." It was on the kitchen chair. A pause. Less than a second, but it felt long. Then she laughed, short, nervous. "Oh, that is Carly's. She came over Saturday for the bachelorette thing. I borrowed it. Forgot to put it away." "The bachelorette thing?" "Yeah," she said, brushing hair out of her face. "You know, for her sister? We played that game where you go out and collect phone numbers. Silly stuff." I stepped closer, receipt now in my hand. "This too." She frowned. "What's that?" I held it out. She read it, then gave a soft laugh. "Oh my God. That thing? Derek was some random guy at the wine bar. I got dared to flirt. Nothing happened. It was part of the game." Her tone was light, playful even. It's a joke, babe. A joke. I nodded, said nothing. She smiled and patted the bed. Come here. You look exhausted. I didn't move. Just said, later, and walked out. The thing is, she sounded convincing. She didn't flinch, didn't over-explain. But something inside me shifted. It wasn't the shirt. It wasn't the receipt. It was the way she didn't react. No panic. No fumbling. Like she'd already rehearsed the answers. I didn't bring it up again. I got ready for the day. Ate toast in silence. Told myself I was paranoid. That I'd spent too long in hotel rooms and airports and boardrooms to be thinking clearly. I went through the motions. Showered. Got dressed. Answered emails. But the whole day, I kept replaying the way she smiled. The way she said it was a game. There were no photos from that night on her Instagram, which was rare. No stories, no group selfies. No tags from Carly or Brooke. Just silence. I texted Carly later that afternoon. Just a casual. Hope the party was fun. Sorry I missed it. She replied, what party? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, Jess said you guys went out Saturday. Bachelorette? The typing dots appeared. Then stopped. Then reappeared. Finally, oh, that was weeks ago. We didn't go out this weekend. Jess had plans though. Thought it was a work thing? Work thing. Saturday night. A wine glass. A name I didn't know. I didn't text back. I didn't say a word. Instead, I closed the messages, turned off my phone, and sat in silence. And that's when I realized something. She hadn't just lied. She had done it so effortlessly. It scared me. It's funny how your brain works when you're suspicious of someone you love. You start collecting moments like puzzle pieces, the ones you'd previously tossed aside because you didn't want to believe they meant anything. But once doubt settles in, those pieces start to fit together in a way you can't unsee. That entire week, I walked through my own life like I was inside a memory I hadn't fully examined. Every little interaction with Jessica, every smile, every conversation, every absence, felt loaded now, like a message I'd missed the first time. Take her phone, for example. It was always off lately, or dead, or left in the car. She used to text me throughout the day. Memes, random updates, thinking of you red heart. But over the past few months, the messages trickled to a stop. I figured she was just busy. Her job at the design firm was picking up. More clients, more projects, more late nights. But now it looked different. The times she forgot to text back. The times she came home from yoga still wearing makeup. The times I'd call and it would ring once before going to voicemail. I remembered a day last month when she skipped my mom's birthday dinner. She said she had a webinar with an overseas client. Something urgent. Said she'd take me out to make up for it. But when I asked how it went, she was vague. Said the internet dropped halfway through and she couldn't get a recording. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her. Then there was the bouquet. It arrived at the house midday. I was working from home that week. The florist rang the bell, asked for Jessica Rowe, and handed me a square black box with white roses and eucalyptus tied in gold ribbon. No brand, just a card. I peeked before she got home, not to be invasive. I thought maybe it was from a friend, maybe something work-related. But the card said, "You were stunning last night. D." Just that. I asked her when she walked in. Her face didn't even twitch. She laughed, walked over, picked up the box. Oh, this? No idea who sent it. Maybe a client? Could be Carly. She does this sometimes when she wants to cheer me up. She tossed the card in the trash. Not torn, not crumpled. Just dropped it in like it didn't matter. Then she kissed me. Said, "I love you." Like it erased everything. And maybe it did. Maybe I wanted it to. Because part of you, when you're in love, will bend in every direction to keep the picture whole. You make excuses on their behalf. You rationalize the irrational. But after finding that shirt, and the receipt, and then Carly saying the bachelorette party happened weeks ago, I couldn't stop the slide anymore. And what's worse, Jessica noticed. That's when she started changing. She started texting more. bringing me coffee, dropping by my office unannounced with pastries from the bakery I liked. She asked about my day more than usual, got extra affectionate, wanted to make time for us again. Movie nights, cooking together, date nights out of nowhere. And at first it felt good. But then it started to feel like something else. Like fire control. Like someone plugging leaks before the ship sank. Not love. Not effort. Not int asterisk Macy. Damage control. She was managing me, not connecting with me. And honestly, I couldn't tell when she stopped being my Jessica. But she had. Something about her had changed. She was still herself, technically, but not the version I knew. Not the woman I met in college. Not the one who used to fall asleep with her legs tangled in mine. Who used to draw smiley faces in the fog on the bathroom mirror after showers. This version was polished. Practiced. Always smiling just enough. Always turning the conversation when it got too close to real. That weekend, I decided to test something. Saturday night, I told her I was going to grab dinner with Eric, my coworker. She said, "Oh, cool," and went right back to curling her hair. No hesitation. I waited, then casually asked, "What are you up to tonight?" She blinked, like she forgot I was still in the room. Oh, nothing. Probably just Netflix and a bath. I'm exhausted. My back's *ling me from the studio chairs. I nodded. Okay, don't wait up. She kissed me goodbye just like always, but I didn't go to dinner. Eric didn't even know I'd used him as an excuse. Instead, I parked my car 2 streets down and waited, and at 8:07 p.m. I watched Jessica step out of the house in black boots and a rust-colored coat. One I'd never seen before. She got into an Uber, and I followed it. I know how that sounds. I hate that it came to that. But the moment she stepped out in front of the Vintner Room, a wine bar known for its dim lighting and couples booths, I knew. She was meeting someone. I didn't follow her inside. Couldn't. I just sat in my car, staring at the glowing sign through the windshield, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I waited 2 hours. 10:14 she came back out. Alone. That's what led me the most. She walked like nothing had happened. Like she was just out running errands. She stood by the curb, phone in hand, checking something. Probably texting him. Then another car pulled up. She got in. Another Uber. I didn't follow her home. I drove in the opposite direction. Toward the water. I parked at the marina and sat there, watching the boats rock gently against the dock. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I felt something that surprised me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was relief. Because now I knew. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overthinking. I wasn't insecure. I was right. And that meant I could stop trying to glue the pieces back together. It meant I could stop twisting myself into knots trying to believe a lie just because it had once been a truth. The sun was just beginning to rise when I drove home. Jessica was asleep on the couch, still in that rust-colored coat. Her phone was in her hand. I didn't wake her. I didn't take her phone. I just stood there for a minute, staring at the person I thought I knew. And I realized something else. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theater, a performance. One she had carefully crafted, scene by scene, line by line. And I had been the audience. Clapping at the right moments, laughing when I was supposed to, believing every word. But the curtain had dropped now. The stage was empty, and all that was left was me, and the silence. By the time the company's annual gala rolled around, I thought I'd reached some kind of emotional equilibrium. That numb, gray zone where nothing really shocks you anymore. I'd made peace with the silence between us, with the late nights, the meetings, the phone face down on the counter. You can only question reality for so long before it stops asking for your permission. Jessica had been radiant lately. That's the word people used when they saw her. Radiant. Her career in design had taken off. She was working on some big project sponsored by the firm's CEO himself. Late nights at the office. Calls with consultants. It all sounded legitimate. And maybe that's what hurt most. That it could have been. The gala was held at the Crestview Hotel downtown. An old, chandelier-filled monument to corporate vanity. Everyone in the company was there, dressed to impress, floating between laughter and networking. I didn't even want to go, but Jessica insisted. She said, "It's important. It's not just my night. It's ours." I should have known what that meant. We arrived together, all polished smiles and perfectly synchronized body language. She wore a new red dress, deep crimson, with a subtle shimmer that caught every camera flash. The kind of dress that made people turn and whisper. She knew what she was doing. She introduced me around, smiling, joking, looping her arm through mine like we were still that couple people envied. Every time someone congratulated her on her project, she squeezed my hand just slightly, like a signal. But her eyes, they were somewhere else. Halfway through the evening, the CEO, Jonathan, took the stage to give a speech. He was the kind of man who loved the sound of his own voice, but that night, even he seemed energized. He started talking about innovation, creativity, new directions. Then he said her name. "Jessica Rowe," he announced, beaming. "Our rising star. The mind behind the design initiative that's changing the way we look at sustainable architecture." People applauded. She stood, pretending to be surprised. "Come up here, Jessica," he said. "Say a few words." She squeezed my arm once, then glided up the stairs, all grace and confidence. Her voice trembled at first, but only in the way that made people lean in closer. She thanked her team, her mentors, her husband, me, and then paused. Then she smiled, and the room seemed to hold its breath. "And finally," she said, "I want to thank the real man who stood by me through this entire process. The one who inspired me to keep pushing, even when it got tough." The crowd clapped politely. I smiled, waiting for her to gesture toward me. Instead, she stepped down from the stage, her heels clicking like punctuation marks across the marble floor, and walked straight toward a tall man near the front row. A man in a navy blazer. Derek. The same Derek whose name was scribbled on that receipt. The one with the wine glass emoji. She wrapped her arms around him. Not a polite hug. Not a congratulatory pat. A real embrace. Lingering, familiar, charged. The applause died quickly. You could hear the air leave the room. I felt the world tilt sideways. Someone whispered near me, "Isn't that?" I didn't move. Couldn't. Jessica turned slightly, still smiling, but when she saw my face, for a split second, the mask slipped. Just a flicker. Her eyes widened, just enough for me to know she hadn't meant for me to be there yet. But there I was, watching everything unravel in slow motion. People clapped again, softer this time, the kind of awkward sound that fills the space between disbelief and pity. Jessica stepped back, said a few final words about collaboration, and returned to her table. Not our table. The one across the room next to Derek. I walked out before dessert. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. It was Jonathan, the CEO. "Have you lost your mind?" He barked before I could say anything. I didn't respond. "Jessica's project, the funding, it's all from your joint account. Do you have any idea what kind of conflict of interest that creates? If the board sees this, Jonathan," I said quietly, "you might want to look into who's really been funding what." There was a long pause, then a muttered, "Oh, Christ," before the line went dead. When I got home, the house felt like a stranger's. The lights were still on. A half-empty wineglass sat by the sink. Jessica's shoes were in the hallway, kicked off like she'd just come home from a normal night. I sat down at the kitchen counter, the same place where I'd once found that shirt. Everything felt circular, like the universe had been preparing me for this exact scene. At midnight, the door opened. Jessica came in, still in that red dress, still glowing under the city's streetlights. She froze when she saw me. "Zach," she said, too calmly, "you left early." "Yeah," I said. "Didn't want to interrupt your speech." Her jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that." "No?" I asked. "Which part wasn't? The public declaration or the private partnership?" She sighed, stepping out of her heels. "You're making this sound worse than it is." I laughed, short, sharp, almost surprised by the sound. Worse than publicly thanking your boyfriend using money from my account? Her face went pale. It's not like that, she repeated, quieter now. Then tell me what it's like. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the counter. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said finally. Derek just what? I interrupted. Accidentally transferred our money into your career? She winced. Please don't do this right now. No, I said, standing. We're doing this right now. Because Jessica, whatever this was, it's over. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want me to see. You don't understand. It wasn't just about him. You're right, I said. It was about you. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I think she realized I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't throwing things. I wasn't begging for an explanation. I was done. She slept in the guest room that night. I didn't sleep at all. I sat at my desk in the study, the blue light from the computer screen washing over stacks of files and old receipts. I opened our shared banking app, scrolled through transactions. There they were. Dozens of transfers labeled as consulting fees. Each one linked to Derek's name. Each one signed off by her. I stared at the screen until the numbers stopped making sense. It wasn't about the money. It was about what it proved, that she'd planned this. That she'd used me not just emotionally, but financially. At 4 a.m., I sent 3 emails. One to my lawyer, one to the company's compliance officer, and one to Jessica's father, Peter Brown, a man I respected, a man who trusted me enough to let me manage one of his investment branches. Each email had the same subject line, transparency. Inside, I attached the documents. No explanations, no anger, just facts. Screensh *TS. Transfers. Photos from the gala. Everything. By sunrise, my marriage wasn't just broken. It was exposed. And strangely, I didn't feel ruined. I felt awake. The thing about betrayal is, once the illusion shatters, everything else becomes crystal clear. It's like wiping fog off a mirror and finally seeing yourself without distortion. There was no panic in me that morning. No spiral. No begging for answers. Just precision. I didn't go into the office. I called out personal day, though no one questioned it, not after the gala. The buzz had already started. People talked. People always talk. I just let them. Instead, I sat down at my home desk with a pot of black coffee, a legal pad, and my laptop. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. That part had passed. This was about clarity. About taking control of something I should have never handed over in the first place. First thing I did was pull up our joint account. I went back through the last 6 months, line by line. I wasn't looking for surprises, just confirmation. And I found it. Repeated transfers labeled consulting, development, or vendor retainer. Always rounded numbers. Always neat descriptions. Always signed by Jessica. To Derek. She was paying him. Through me. Whether it was hush money or partnership or some half-baked startup scam, it didn't matter. The financial trail was solid. No ambiguity. And that gave me power. I printed it all. Every transfer. Every transaction. Highlighted the dates. Drew red circles around the ones that coincided with her client meetings or studio nights. Then I moved to our shared cloud folder. We had a sync drive, something we set up early in our marriage to track our personal investments, our startup planning, budgets, big purchases. I hadn't touched it in months. She had. Inside were documents I hadn't seen before. Project blueprints. Branding decks. A pitch packet for Luminal Studio. A design firm she was building with a mentor. Derek's name was in the footer of all of it. And next to his name, the Harper Ventures logo, my company's logo. She used my company's name to legitimize the pitch. No agreement. No mention. Just slapped it on the slide deck like I had approved it. I clicked through slowly, page by page. I wasn't surprised. But each slide felt like another inch of distance between the woman I married and the woman sitting in the guest room upstairs, pretending this was salvageable. She hadn't just betrayed me. She forged me into the background of her new story. A silent cosigner. A bank with a heartbeat. I zipped the folder. Backed it up. Removed her access. Then I opened our permissions dashboard, the one tied to Harper's investor suite. She still had privileges. View access. Edit rights on some planning boards. She wasn't supposed to. It was meant to be temporary while we were setting up phase 2. I revoked everything. Her name vanished from the collaborator list like it had never been there. Next, I drafted a message to my lawyer. Subject: urgent separation of assets. Attaching financial logs and account activity. Need formal freeze on shared funds. Will initiate asset protection immediately. Also attaching proof of unauthorized use of company branding and funds. Ready for divorce proceedings, amicable where possible. Quiet, clean, fast. Z.R. I hit send. One more email, this one to Peter Brown, Jessica's father. My father-in-law. My former mentor. The man who trusted me with a multimillion-dollar development branch. This wasn't personal. Not entirely. He deserved to know what was happening with his daughter. Not emotionally, but financially. I attached **TS. Dates. The deck file with his own company name referenced without permission. No commentary. No bitterness. Just the truth. Then I ended with one line. I'll leave personal feelings out of this if you do the same. I closed the laptop. Poured more coffee. Still no sound from upstairs. By noon, the financial locks were in place. Shared credit frozen. Accounts split. Authorization removed from every portal she once had access to. I sent her a text. Not a confrontation. Just facts. All financial accounts have been restricted. Legal counsel engaged. You'll receive documentation shortly. No emotion. No explanation. Just closure mid-process. 5 minutes later, she replied. Zach, can we please talk? I didn't answer. I turned my phone face down, stood, and walked outside. The air was sharp that day, cool, with a bite that hit the lungs in just the right way. I needed it. I walked for an hour through the old neighborhood. Past the bookstore we used to visit on Sundays. Past the coffee shop where she once spilled her latte and laughed like she was weightless. Felt like another life. Because it was. Back then, we had a kind of rhythm, something easy. Before the ambitions twisted. Before the smiles became rehearsed. Before I became a stepping stone. Somewhere between year 3 and 4, I think we stopped being partners. And I didn't notice. That's what haunts me more than anything. Not that she cheated. But that I missed it. That I let myself become this person who slept beside a stranger and still thought we were whole. When I returned home, there was a note on my desk, written in her handwriting, not folded, not hidden, just sitting there like a white flag. Zach, I'm sorry. I made everything worse. I never meant for it to get this far. I was scared to fail, scared to admit I needed help. I didn't plan to hurt you. Can we talk before we tear this apart? It was vague, strategic, a plea that said damage control more than remorse. There was no mention of Derek. No ownership of what she'd done. Just fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing the foundation she'd been standing on. I left the note where it was. Walked into the guest room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed. Phone in hand. She looked up. Eyes red. Mascara smudged. I didn't expect it to go this way, she said. I stayed in the doorway. It never does. Zach, please. Can we talk? We are. She stood. I didn't use you. Not like that. You have to believe me. I don't, I said. And I don't have to. She stepped forward. I made a mistake. No, I cut in. You made a series of calculated decisions. Her face collapsed. Tears. The kind that come when the performance stops working. I loved you, she whispered. I didn't answer. Because maybe she did. In her way. But it wasn't a kind of love I could recognize anymore. I spent the rest of the day packing her things. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Box by box. Closet, bathroom, office drawer. Labeled everything. Clean. No damage. No drama. Then I rented a storage unit and delivered all of it there. Left the code on a sticky note on the fridge. 4182. That night, I slept like a man who had finally stopped treading water. No dreams, no guilt, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, that silence didn't feel empty. Felt like air. 3 days passed after I sent the email to Peter Brown. 3 long, quiet days. Jessica had moved into a hotel by then. She hadn't said where. Just a short message. I'll give you space. I understand if you can't speak to me right now. I didn't reply. I wasn't avoiding her. I was choosing silence over performance. I'd spent enough time in a marriage where the loudest voices drowned out the most important truths. Instead, I focused on what mattered, severing the threads quietly, precisely, without feeding into the chaos. Then Peter called. No text, no warning, just a call. His name lit up my screen like a headline I'd been waiting for. I answered. "Zach," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "We need to meet. In person." "Where?" I asked. He named the location, a private club downtown, the kind of place where the curtains are always drawn and no one asks questions. I said, "I'll be there in an hour." Peter Brown wasn't just my father-in-law. He was a legacy, a builder, one of those rare people who'd started with blueprints and raw land and ended up with a skyline under his name. When I first met Jessica, I was more intimidated by him than I was in love with her. Eventually, he grew to trust me. He brought me into his orbit, let me manage projects that other people twice my age weren't allowed to touch. He once told me over dinner, "I don't trust many people with my name on the line, but I trust you." I remembered that line as I pushed open the heavy mahogany door to the club's meeting room. Peter was already seated, drink in hand. No tie, no jacket, just a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled. He looked older than I remembered. "Zach," he said, nodding toward the chair across from him. I sat. He didn't waste time. I reviewed the documents. I waited. He sipped his drink, scotch probably. Always was. "I'll be blunt," he said. "I've known for a while that Jessica was chasing shadows, always looking for the next thing to validate her." I said nothing. He continued, "I hoped she'd outgrow it. Thought maybe marriage would anchor her. Thought you would." Another sip. "But you can't build discipline into someone who doesn't want it. I learned that the hard way with her mother." He leaned back, eyes narrowing just slightly. "She used your name, your company, and your money to fund a fantasy. And now it's collapsing. She'll try to spin it. She always does." "She already did," I said quietly. He nodded once. "I assume you're taking legal action?" "Divorce is in process," I said. "Separation of assets. Account freeze. Compliance report filed. All internal." "Good," he said. "You kept it quiet. That matters." We sat in silence for a moment. Not tense. Not awkward. Just measured. Then he said, "You still want to stay in this business?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, "you've been dragging her dead weight for months, all while carrying 2 portfolios, managing investor expectations, and building a reputation I'd be proud to slap my name on." He leaned forward, voice lower. "I'd like to help you launch something new. Clean slate. No ties. No history. No Jessica." It hit me harder than expected. Not the offer, but the way he said her name. As if it were already a footnote. "You're serious?" I asked. "Dead serious," he said. "But there's a condition." Of course there was. He lifted his glass slightly, as if making a toast no one else could hear. "Discretion. I don't want my name in this. Not publicly. Not even quietly. I'll fund the seed. You build it. You keep it quiet. And you keep it sharp." "What kind of sharp?" I asked. He smiled for the first time that day. Not warmly. Strategically. Quiet. But no mercy. That night I didn't sleep. Not out of stress, out of electricity. My mind raced with possibilities. I pulled up my old drafts, the ones Jessica never cared about. Concepts for a new kind of platform. Ethical funding. Transparent metrics. Startups with clean missions and real people behind them. Not the fake brands and buzzwords Derek peddled. I stayed up mapping it out. By sunrise, I had a name. Harper Integrity. Harper was my mother's maiden name. Strong, clean, untied to the mess Jessica left behind. Integrity felt right. Not preachy. Not performative. Just real. I called Peter the next day. Told him I'd start by the end of the month. He transferred the first round of funds within 48 hours. No questions. No strings. Just a single confirmation email. Build something they can't fake. The first person I hired was a systems architect I met 2 years ago at a seminar in Seattle. A quiet guy named Nolan who hated buzzwords and preferred actual metrics. Next was Priya, a strategist from an NGO we'd once tried to sponsor. Sharp thinker. No fluff. I didn't hire friends. Didn't loop in old partners. I built from scratch. No one asked about Jessica. If they did, I kept it short. We wanted different things. And that was true. She wanted flash. I wanted foundation. She wanted applause. I wanted function. A week later, Jessica emailed again. First, it was financial questions. Then it was softer. Can we talk? Do you hate me? I miss what we had. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to clarify. When someone breaks the frame, you don't sit around gluing the glass back together. You replace the picture. I moved into a small loft above an old bookstore that had closed down during the pandemic. The owner let it go for cheap. Said he liked the idea of it turning into something new. The walls still smelled like paper and ink. I kept it simple. Desk, coffee pot, whiteboard. No distractions. No memories. I still saw people from the old life, coworkers, investors, vendors. Some asked questions carefully, as if afraid to step on emotional landmines. I didn't offer gossip, just the facts. Jessica and I are no longer working together. Harper is a clean break. New team, new model. And most people respected that. The ones who didn't, I didn't work with them. One night, I found myself sitting on the rooftop, a cold beer in hand, laptop open beside me, watching the skyline I'd once helped build. It didn't feel like loss. Felt like breathing again. Like standing on the other side of a storm and realizing your house didn't drown. It adapted. It grew. That's what trust became for me. Not a promise you make to someone else, but a promise you make to yourself. To keep your own hands clean, your own vision honest, your own footing solid even when the ground shifts. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about rebuilding without the rot. I packed her things, labeled the boxes, and left them at a storage unit. Code 4182. No note, no message, just space. She emailed, first cold, then desperate. I never replied. The house grew quiet, but not empty. For the first time in years, stillness didn't scare me. Harper Integrity launched in a sunlit office with clean walls and clearer purpose. No noise, no lies, just a future I wasn't afraid to live in alone. At a forum in San Francisco, I ran into Emma, Jessica's younger sister. What started as coffee turned into collaboration. No pressure, no past, just work, growth, quiet laughter. One evening, I gave her a dark green pendant. Not love, trust. She understood. We were two people rebuilding, not reacting. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel lost. I felt found, and I didn't look back.